Say shots rang out at a protest today in downtown Portland. A Patriot Prayer style protest and BLM counter protest were underway when someone opened fire. KOIN 6's Jennifer Dowling is live now with the details on this. What do we know about what happened, Jennifer?
Well, Wayne, we're trying to gather more information, but it was a really tense situation downtown here. Let's start with the beginning. Folks gathered here at the Justice Center for a protest and counter protest earlier in the day, probably around noon or 1 o'clock. Protesting was going on for about an hour to an hour and a half before this situation unfolded. People started marching and moving around as far as the protests and counter protests were concerned. They made their way over to the 7-Eleven area near Southwest 4th when someone opened fire. So some very tense and scary situations here, and this all happened at a parking garage, outside a parking garage rather, downtown. So members of Patriot Prayer were down here demonstrating, holding that protest against Antifa and criticizing the recent BLM protests. Some identified all this as a black and blue protest on the that side of the aisle. Meantime, the Black Lives Matter protesters had gathered for that counter protest, and at some point within the two groups and shortly after that, someone reported that shots rang out. That was after some people got pepper sprayed as well. Fortunately, nobody was hit by those bullets. We were able to get video of the casings after it happened, and this is what one witness had to say.
That was about 15-20 minutes ago. We were shot at, unprovoked, bear maced, all that fun stuff. It's been like, 15-20 minutes. The police are still not here. 2 live rounds, and the police still have not shown up.
Now, witnesses said it looked as if the person who did the shooting might have gone into a parking garage or something like that afterward, but we don't really know exactly what happened. A person with a gun was seen going into a building shortly afterward. Again, we don't know what side of the aisle that person was on. We know what witnesses are saying, but we can't confirm that at this time. And we reached out to police to see if they have any comment on this, to find out if they are actively investigating this situation, but we're not sure about that either. All we know is it was very scary for a couple of protest groups downtown when those shots rang out.
It's hard to say. You never know what kind of crowd you get. What was that? Oh, sorry.
What
the hell was that?
Explosive.
What was that?
Wow. It was an explosive.
Jeez.
We're just fed up. We're tired of this.
We're just tired of the vandalism, the violence.
Close to 100 neighbors rallied outside the East Precinct Sunday to support the police and say enough is enough.
We don't want to see our police department smashed up and lit on fire. We don't feel safe. Get this out of our neighborhood.
Dan Goots organized the event that brought in residents calling on city leaders to take action.
They're being very passive. We need them to step up and actually help our communities and do something. Put actions behind words.
The group expressed support for peaceful protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, but not destruction.
We want what's right, and we want wrong righted.
It's too bad that these Marxists have hijacked that movement and corrupted it, because it's no longer about black people anymore.
As police drove by, the crowd often erupted in cheers.
We just want to get behind our police because we feel like the city leaders have really hamstrung them. They're preventing them from doing their jobs.
I was excited for this to happen.
Erica Hurley with Portland Police came out a few times to speak with residents. She says some of the challenges they face with riots comes down to manpower.
We're doing the best we can, but again, we have very, very limited resources and numbers of officers to do that. And as the budget cuts come, we'll have less.
She says police is open to change and have tried to speak with some of the people causing damage.
And they will not talk to us. They aren't here to try to create reform. They're not here to make change. They're here to destroy, and those are completely different things.
And with that said, residents had one last plea to city leaders.
Please help us. Don't be afraid. Stand up, do the right thing, and protect our communities.
Christelle Kumwe, KGW News.